This is a Fox News alert. Prince William responding to a bombshell case of media malpractice involving his mother, Princess Diana. An investigation has found that BBC reporter Martin Bashir used, quote, deceitful tactics in order to secure a landmark tell-all interview with Princess Diana back in 1995. Benjamin Hall is standing by in London with all the details. Benjamin.
Jesse, good afternoon. Yes, you'll remember this interview from 1995. It was groundbreaking. The first time Princess Diana had spoken publicly about the breakdown of her marriage to Prince Charles, about his adultery with Camilla Parker Bowles. In fact, she said in the interview, there were 3 of us in this relationship. It just didn't work. She spoke about her rampant bulimia. And many people feel that this interview led to events that led to her death a couple of years later. Well, what has now emerged is that she gave that interview after being shown forged bank documents, which made it look as if members of the royal household were being paid to spy on her. Prince William released this statement just in the last few minutes, saying, "It is my view that the deceitful way the interview was obtained substantially influenced what my mother said. The interview was a major contribution to making my parents' relationship worse and has since hurt countless others. It brings indescribable sadness to know that the BBC's failures contributed significantly to her fear, paranoia and isolation that I remember from those final years with her. It was always thought strange that Princess Diana chose Martin Bashir, a relatively young, unknown journalist, to do this interview. It's now clear she did so because he duped her and had asked the BBC graphics team to draw up these fake documents to convince her. Some have compared that 1995 Diana interview to the one Prince Harry recently gave to Oprah. They both talked about how hard they found royal life and how it affected their mental health. But an incredibly open, personal letter from Prince William in the last few moments. He has often said that he felt the media hounded his mother. Well, this letter goes a little bit further, and it said, had she known about the deceit at the time, things may have turned out very differently. Jesse?
Thanks, Ben. Hang tight. We want to ask you a few questions. Dana Perino, go right ahead.
Well, Jesse, I know you are an expert on this case, so I'm glad you tossed it to me. Just kidding. I do have some questions, Benjamin. First of all, why in the world would Diana's team, the PR team, and I'm sure she's not making these decisions on her own, have asked for bank records? Why? How does that happen?
Well, first of all, her team was actually quite diminished at the time. The royal family, by all accounts, had rather cut her off, and she was left with quite a small team, her brother being the main one. And this journalist, Martin Bashir, approached the brother saying, I've come across these documents which show that members of your household and of Princess Diana's household have been accepting money totaling about £10,000, about $15,000, to give information on her life to both the tabloids as well as to the security services. And it was that piece of information that encouraged Diana to go with Martin Bashir. It was widely reported that she was wanting to give an interview anyway, but certainly not to this young Bashir. And certainly the interview would not have been, many people think, as groundbreaking, as such a big, open, honest interview as she gave. But she was very angry with the reports that Martin Bashir brought to her.
But what about this report that there was a handwritten note that she wrote that said she was happy with the interview?
Yeah, she did, and that's what Martin Bashir continually brings up. But that's because there had not been an investigation at the time. The BBC had an internal investigation which showed Martin Bashir was at fault here, but they held that. They covered it up. They didn't release it. So the feeling is at the moment that Princess Diana just didn't realise the true extent of the fraud that was played on her.
That being said, I mean, I just think that I think it diminishes her intelligence, and she was clever and she was smart and she was an intelligent woman, and she put it out there that there were 3 people in the marriage, and maybe that was hurtful, maybe that led to additional things, but it just seems to me that if you give an interview to a reporter, at least here, they would be a little bit different. Thanks, Benjamin.
Thanks, Dana.
And Kennedy, would you like to ask Benjamin a question?
Yes, oftentimes we have a saying, obviously, the ends justify the means. But the means were fraudulent, and the end was utterly tragic for this woman. Can you put into context how she obviously was the brightest burning royal at the time? There was years and years of gossip about the Wales marriage. But when that fell apart and this interview came out before the year before they were divorced, How did that interview change how she was pursued by the press?
I'll ask a
how does that lead into her son's reaction?
Yeah, it played into it in a big way, and you're right, she was the shining star of the royal family at the time, and frankly, many people have said that Prince Charles in particular really didn't like that. He couldn't stand it. He was the heir to the throne. He was the one that was supposed to get all the attention, and Princess Diana was the people's princess. She was the one that people turned to, and so when the divorce or when the marriage broke down, people started to side with her, and they didn't like that. And then as soon as she spoke to the press, she kind of crossed that line. Royals tend to be given some sort of privacy in the UK. They certainly did in the 90s. But when she came out and gave that big interview, it was almost as if the gloves came off and that she was fair game for the rest of the press. And it really was that point that we started to see them hound her. Not just one or two paparazzi, but hundreds and hundreds at a time following her everywhere she went. And she was not given support or security by the royal family. That's what she argues. The counter side to this is that she very cleverly used the media. She knew she was heading into a divorce battle. She knew that she needed to improve her own standing and become the people's princess. And so she was often known to give tip-offs to the media and to the tabloids when it suited her, and then also didn't want the attention when it was bad. So, there are two sides to how Princess Diana interacted with the media, but certainly there is no excuse for the kind of journalistic malpractice that comes with forging documents to get an interview.
Juan Williams, why don't you jump in here?
All right. So, this week there was news here in the U.S. when Prince Harry, I guess, said, he thinks the First Amendment here in the United States is confusing to him. He doesn't understand it. And I know that Fleet Street is famous in Britain for its aggressive tactics, tapping phones and all the rest. But is there a different set of rules just for us as Americans to understand as we take in this story? Or is there a different set of protections for public figures like Diana that are being applied now in this BBC report?
Well, certainly there was an understanding between the papers and the royal family that the two princes would give X amount, I think it was only a few media events a year, and in exchange they would be given their privacy. And that's been a long-standing agreement between the press and the princes over here in the royal family. That started to change, and I think we've seen that the world over. Social media also started to mean that, and of course that came a bit later, but that they were everywhere. And paparazzi, the 90s was the heyday of paparazzi, and these pictures were being sold in other countries, so the UK press could no longer control it. And there was a big discussion as to whether if these photos that were being taken so often of Princess Diana were being published around the world, well, why should the UK press also have to be silenced and not be able to publish them? And so we started to see a relationship change between the royal family and the media. But yes, you talk about Prince Harry, and I think many people say that he is just as savvy as his mother was when it comes to using and playing with the media, and we've seen that now. He called the First Amendment bonkers, I think it was, and it's surprising that Prince William was the first one to come out with a statement, because it is almost always Harry who is quickly on Instagram or Twitter with his replies. Interestingly, we will see the two brothers together on the 1st of July because it would have been Princess Diana's 60th birthday, and they're unveiling a statue together, and it'll be the first time that we've seen them since Prince Philip's funeral and since the big rift has continued to widen. So all eyes will be on that. But it seems like there are two different camps at the moment. You have William, who often comes out with these rather more restrained statements, and then you have Harry with these far more emotional ones, and some people feel that he's really following the Diana model. But this statement today from Prince William was emotional and raw to the core, and he talked about the pain and almost the suffering that this interview caused him. So I think we're seeing a game play out between the two of them. Prince William doesn't want Prince Harry to be the one who carries the mantle of his mother. He wants to remind the world that she was his mother too, and he has just as much of a right over her. So it's an interesting battle playing out between the two brothers, so we'll all be watching when they come back together again on July the 1st.
Yeah, William's statement actually included the phrase fake news, which I had to do a little bit of a double take there. I didn't know that had become so popular across the pond, Benjamin. Katie P. would like to ask you a question, so stick right there. Katie.
So, Benjamin, you're mentioning this rivalry that seems to be brewing between the two brothers, and color me suspicious, but this was an independent inquiry, so can you please talk about who was behind the independent inquiry, because this interview took place 26 years ago. And now you have Harry in the U.S. working with Oprah. There was a headline this week saying he was going to drop more, quote, truth bombs about the royal family. So who was behind the investigation and why is it coming out now?
Yeah, there have long been rumors that this interview was based on fraudulent reporting. The BBC did its own internal investigation about 25 years ago, and they covered it up. This new investigation came along. It's called the Dyson Inquiry, headed up by Lord Dyson, who's a well-known legal figure over here. And it came about just because of the changes in the media that we're seeing. We had the phone hacking scandal, which took place, 10 years or so. And we've seen a number of cases brought back and reinvestigated. This has been one of them. And as a result, this has come to light, and it has now been accepted by the BBC, who have always denied it. And whether there'll be ramifications, we just don't know at the moment. But the press really are being held to account more and more over here. I think you mentioned the phone hacking, which took place around 10 years ago. That absolutely changed the way the media was seen over here. It was the Wild West for them. They were hacking into Prince Harry's voicemails, because a lot of these voicemails were just generic passwords. And all this information was being splashed over the newspapers, and they really cracked down on that. And what we're seeing now, frankly, is the media continuing to try and clean itself up and perhaps address old mistakes.
Thanks a lot, Benjamin. I guess it's true that media corruption has no borders. And Prince Harry has released a statement saying, quote, "To those who have taken some form of accountability, thank you for owning it. That is the first step towards justice and truth. Yet what deeply concerns me is that practices like these, and even worse, are still widespread today. Then and now, it's bigger than one outlet, one network, or one publication. My biggest concern was history repeating itself. I've said that before on numerous occasions, very publicly, and what I was seeing was history repeating itself, but more, perhaps, or definitely far more dangerous. Wow. Because then you add race in, and you add social media in. And when I'm talking about history repeating itself, I'm talking about my mother." Very interesting that he would say that at this point. Yeah. And we will leave it at that.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.